Hello, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Tuesday's edition of Alaska Weather. 14th day of December now, 2021. I'm David Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, hosting today's show. And let's see, the first graphic we've got is hazardous weather graphic. And let me back that up one. Up on the western Arctic coast, that's a wind chill warning out for tonight through Thursday. And again, western Arctic coast, and that's for wind chill temperatures to 70 degrees below zero. To the south, there are wind chill advisories out for the Noatak Valley, Red Dog Mine, Red Dog Dock area, and Kivalina, Noatak Valley, and also for the northern Seward Peninsula for wind chills 40 to 50 degrees below zero for tonight through tomorrow. And then the kind of the rust-colored areas there, Kotzebue Sound into the Selawik Valley and St. Lawrence Island, Bering Strait coast, eastern Norton Sound area there, and the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta. Those are winter storm watches for snow and blowing snow to increase. Could create whiteout conditions with anywhere from 2 to 6 inches of snow falling. Some areas see more. But the wind and blowing snow will create visibilities less than a quarter mile at times, or even in some cases whiteout conditions, especially along the coastal areas where the winds are the strongest. And in the Kuskokwim Valley, winter weather advisory out again or actually the watch goes into effect late tonight and continues through Wednesday afternoon for the watch areas there. And for the Kuskokwim Valley, that's a winter weather advisory out for tomorrow for snow and blowing snow, and could see visibilities reduced to quarter mile or half mile or less at times there with the winter weather advisory. And then also there's a there's a blizzard warning out for the Thompson Pass area, and that's out until 11 p.m. this evening for winds gusting to 40 miles an hour and the 1 to 4 inches of new snow they've seen, creating whiteout conditions at times right through the pass, but that'll improve by midnight tonight. Winds will come down and conditions will improve considerably there. Moving on from the hazardous weather graphic to satellite imagery, you can see the one system brought the snow across southern Alaska overnight last night, pushing off and spreading into the panhandle today. Not much precipitation with that as it moves in there to the southeast coast. Just some areas of snow showers, light snow, pretty very light, not anything significant, and a leftover area, Copper River Basin, keeping the snowfall going there, 1, 2, 3 inches falling in the Gulkana area and areas across the Copper River Basin. They were from 1 to 4 inches, ending slowly from west to east there, clearing out over Cook Inlet, Manauskas, Sitna Valley, clearing very cold west of the Alaska Range northward. Many temperatures, low temperatures in the minus 40s. Across interior Alaska overnight last night from the North Slope all the way down to the Kuskokwim Valley. McGrath down to 40 below for an overnight low. And also Nenana 42 below for their low, and Fairbanks had 40 below. Otherwise, you can see the system next front out over the Bering Sea, slowly moving eastward there, still just west of Adak. And they picked up about 1/3 of an inch of rainfall there. Temperatures in the mid-40s, rain in the Pribilofs, temperatures in the upper 30s there. Kind of a dry day for the eastern Aleutians. And then back to the west, showers and gusty winds towards Shimia with the main low center. You can see the moisture cirrus shield spreading thick cirrus up into the northern Bering Sea there across St. Lawrence Island. Winds starting to come up now, and snow will begin to fall there again. And of course, with the wind and the snow, that'll visibilities will drop off quite a bit overnight tonight, especially late tonight into tomorrow. And on the Arctic coast, not a lot going on up there, just very cold temperatures. Central western Arctic coast, a little milder with some light snow over toward Barter Island, Kaktovik, maybe down toward Arctic Village area, and also some light snow around Anatuvik Pass. And that's about it for the interior, just looking at very cold conditions. Temperatures below zero, well below zero throughout, even into the afternoon today. There's that area of snow over the Copper River Basin, and then the tighter gradient there with the gusty winds through the passes, channeled areas, seeing whiteout conditions, blizzard warning Thompson Pass again through this evening. But drying out over Cook Inlet, Manauskas Valley area, where the skies cleared out, temperatures actually falling in the afternoon, in some cases falling back below zero after being above zero earlier this morning in the cloud cover. and Arctic high pressure ridging down into Bristol Bay, and kind of breezy for Kodiak Island. Had winds gusted to about 47 miles an hour out of the north earlier today at Seward there. Otherwise, out to the west, that front about moving past Adak now and pushing into Atka brought about a third to a half an inch of rain there, with temperatures, as I mentioned, pushing up into the mid-40s. And that warm front north of the Pribilofs, rain falling there, snow and blowing snow on the increase there for St. Lawrence Island. And the southeast coast basically dry. You got some mid and high level clouds moving across the Panhandle over kind of cloudy skies. Any precipitation very scattered and light and no real significance. For tonight, may get clipped with some risk of a shower down toward the south end, say Heidelberg, Prince of Wales Island. Otherwise, that area of light snow slowly fades away, but persists over the eastern Copper River Basin, possibly down to Cordova to Yakutat, but additional amounts will be quite light, and that'll just act to keep your overnight lows a little warmer than they otherwise would be, like in the clear areas. Temperatures falling far below zero again, 35 to 50 below for interior lows north and west of the Alaska Range, but starting to warm up on the west coast there with that south to southeast wind starting to kick in. And again, the blizzard watch out for the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta coast late tonight, especially Nunivak Island up to St. Lawrence Island to the Bering Strait coast. Wind chill warning with 15 mile an hour or greater winds for the western Arctic coastal areas. And that low center front dragging out right along the Aleutians, low center staying back toward the northwest Bering Sea. We'll see on Wednesday, tomorrow, that pulls northeastward a little bit. The front makes landfall along the southwest coast, probably by mid-afternoon, give or take. And definitely blowing snow on the increase and pushing eastward into the Kuskokwim Valley, while the central interior will see an increase in the clouds in the afternoon after a very cold morning, tomorrow morning, well below zero, but stays clear and cold over the remainder eastern half and northern half of the, or northern part of the state, especially in the north slope to the Arctic coast. A few snow showers, that moisture slips on into the northern panhandle, but not much left of it, so whatever falls will be quite light, just clouds and light winds. Winds continue to diminish, but it'll still be pretty breezy, especially over the northern inner channel areas, Lynn Canal Glacier Bay, through tomorrow. And looking ahead to Thursday, we've got a widespread area of light snow. That front kind of goes to pieces, but a lot of moisture and southwest flow aloft coming in. Definitely a significant warming trend starts up, and pretty good chance of seeing some snow at some point in the day Thursday anywhere in the shaded area across much of mainland Alaska, North Gulf Coast, Kodiak Island, some of that slipping into the north coast of the Panhandle. And the next system bringing gale force winds, rain, another round of warmer temperatures into the central Aleutians. And the original low, former low, kind of weakens just west of St. Lawrence Island. And you'll probably lose the blizzard conditions there once they start, because winds will drop off quite a bit, but still blowing snow up along the western Arctic coast and western DeLong Mountains. And state low, Galena, 46 below this morning, and that the state's high, 46 above at Adak. Now moving on to lows tonight, 25 to 35 below outside of the south central Alaska, otherwise 5 to 20 below for the Susitna Valley into the Kenai Peninsula. Single numbers, northern Panhandle to near 20 in the south, about 20 for Kodiak Island. Highs tomorrow pushing 20 at King Salmon, otherwise staying below zero Kuskokwim Valley, 5 to 15 below there. Single numbers, south central Alaska to 22 at Homer, below zero Copper River Basin, lower 20s northern Panhandle, lower 30s to the south. And overnight lows Thursday morning, right around zero, south central Alaska, Susitna Valley still below zero, but a little warmer than tomorrow morning. And down to near zero, northern Panhandle to around 20 in the south, upper 20s towards Sitka, upper 30s for your highs for Kodiak on Thursday afternoon. Shade below zero, Copper River Basin, trying to push 20, south central Alaska, trying to push 30 around Kachemak Bay. Lows in the interior, 35 to 50 below tonight, followed by highs tomorrow in the minus 20s.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Moving on to flying weather, we've got VFR, all of interior Alaska, some IFR over the eastern Copper River Basin on down toward Yakutat, otherwise the Panhandle VFR, and then marginal VFR with some IFR moving on to the southwest coast and covering St. Lawrence Island, the Pribilofs, Fox Islands, Alaska Peninsula. VFR behind the front there for Adak and Atka. Marginal VFR Mchitka out to the Komondorskis. And for the afternoon, IFR pushes eastward there as a whole pattern, both at the surface and aloft, shifts off to the east as well. So IFR in the increase as far east as Dillingham by late in the day and midday into Togiak Bay, inland across the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, western Seward Peninsula, and becoming marginal VFR for the Pribilofs, improving conditions for the Fox Islands, and becoming VFR for, it looks like, most of the Aleutians. VFR over the interior, and then some marginal VFR in northern Panhandle along the central and north coast. And for the afternoon, we've got IFR into the Kuskokwim Valley now, or I'm sorry, for Thursday morning, we've got IFR into the Kuskokwim Valley and into Kamishak Bay as well across Bristol Bay, much of the western interior south of the Brooks Range out to the northern Bering Sea. Good VFR over the southern Bering Sea there from about Adak into the Fox Islands, and some VFR showing up around the Pribilofs, another batch of IFR slipping on into Shimianatu. Panhandle stays VFR, as well as the eastern interior, North Slope Arctic coast. And then some of that IFR slips north of the Brooks Range there into the western North Slope Thursday afternoon, but staying south of the central and eastern Arctic coast. And then pretty good deterioration of conditions into the central interior. A lot of IFR now, even into Cook Inlet, Kenai Peninsula, North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound, along and south of the Alaska Range there. So sit in the valley, and also for the Brooks Range, but extreme eastern interior staying VFR. Panhandle mostly VFR, although marginal VFR shifting inland. And for passes, Anatuvik, VFR. Same thing for Adigan, looking really good for tomorrow as high pressure comes across the state, both at the surface and aloft. Lake Clark and Merrill, VFR, either approach. Rainy, same forecast. Windy, VFR. And for Isabel, looking good, VFR. Mentasta, VFR as well. Tanita, ceilings visibilities unlimited. And for Portage, good VFR. Chilkoot and White, though, looking a little marginal throughout the day Wednesday. Freezing levels 2,000 to 6,000 feet southeast Bering Sea, the Alaska Peninsula. And otherwise, the surface now north of the Pribilof Islands and well south of Kodiak yet, south of the North Gulf Coast, and then cuts down across the Queen Charlotte Islands. And icing, isolated moderate with that incoming frontal boundary there with the moisture, Alaska Peninsula, eastern Aleutians, and the frontal boundary kind of hung up along the Aleutian chain there for areas of very isolated moderate rime or mixed icing. And then some mixed icing possible, mostly the light variety, just an elevated threat there for the eastern North Gulf Coast and along the coast of the Panhandle. Jet stream showing the upper ridge kind of collapsing, flattening out, and shifting eastward. Still pretty good jet out of the northwest coming down into the northern Panhandle from the eastern interior at about 100 to 105 knots. But notice a south-southwest flow, 65 to 85 knots, advancing eastward toward the southwest and west coast areas. 9,000 feet south to north flow, 40 to 55 knots from the Alaska Peninsula across the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, Togiak Bay, Seward Peninsula into the Bering Strait, westerlies 50 to 70 knots, central western Aleutians, and northwest continues 35 knots to 40 knots there into the Gulf of Alaska. 3,000 feet southeast, 55 knots there over the eastern Seward Peninsula, 40 knots out of the south for the southwest coast. Otherwise, along the Aleutian, southern Bering Sea, westerlies 35 to 40 knots, turn southwest at about 35 over the Alaska Peninsula. And pretty light wind conditions for the Panhandle and the eastern interior to the eastern Arctic coast. Turbulence, considerable moderate chop along the west coast, kind of shifting inland. Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta areas, moderate chop for the Alaska Peninsula to Unalaska Island, and also much of the central and western Aleutians with some light to isolated moderate chop in across the Copper River Basin, North Gulf Coast, and northern Panhandle. Otherwise, smooth over the north and northeast interior. After the break, I'll be back with a look at the marine forecasts.
Welcome to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snyder with the National Weather Service, and joining us today, two more people to talk about the augmented reality sandbox. It's Alana Valaji. She's a University of Alaska Fairbanks mechanical engineering student, helped design and work on the details to make this new type of sandbox there. Thanks for joining us, Alana. Thanks. And Courtney Breest, she's the outreach coordinator for AKwx, which is the experimental program to stimulate competitive research. It's a program funded nationally by the National Science Foundation, right?
Yes.
Okay. Alana, tell us about how you changed and adapted this version of the augmented reality sandbox. It's a really cool tool.
So Gina approached us with 3 goals for this new version of the sandbox. They wanted it to be compact in a light system that could travel around the state. They wanted it to be child-oriented, so we designed the sandbox to have 3 different levels.
Okay.
It's pretty cool. You can have younger children, you can have high school kids. I guess I should say high school teenagers.
Sure.
And then we also designed it to be more marketable, user-friendly, so that this could be seen eventually in classrooms all over the place, all over the state.
Okay. And you had a big hand in this, but this was a team approach, right?
Definitely. It was a really good experience for myself, for George Stevens, who we'll see later.
One of our hand models today. Yeah.
For 2 other members who aren't here today, Cody Klingman and Austin Hunt. And it was just a really good learning experience all around.
Very good. And this is something that is part of your learning experience as well, so you get to check a box in your education.
Yeah,
right?
it's a requirement for seniors of mechanical engineering at University of Alaska Fairbanks.
Very good. Very good. Well, it is a wonderfully inquisitive tool, fun to play with, and I hope to get my hands in the sand here in just a little bit. But it's also part of a bigger program, something that we were talking about a moment ago, AKwx, and that's what Courtney is here to tell us more about. What is AKwx and why do you need a sandbox?
Well, AKwx, as you mentioned, is a national program. We're funded nationally, but we're actually located statewide. We're at UAF, we're at UAA, we're in Southeast at UAS. And she mentioned, you know, taking the sandbox as an educational tool, and that's where I'm an outreach coordinator for the South Central test case.
Okay.
Our focus is on the Kenai watershed, and we are really interested in using these tools like the sandbox to interact with the students down there and get them interested in STEM and also communicate the research findings that we've been having throughout the state.
Okay. And one of those, as George and Eric are kind of changing the contours for us there from UAF to maybe something that resembles a little bit of something more of the Kenai watershed, which is one of your focuses for the study, right? And specifically looking at some of the changes there and how that impacts people and also the salmon.
Yes, it is all of our research is social and environmental.
Okay.
So we have social scientists working hand in hand with our environmental scientists. One of the things we're studying is Upper Russian Lake, and we have a researcher taking sediment cores from that lake. So one of the things we're going to use the sandbox to communicate is how the landscape changed over a long period of time, thousands of years, going from glacier, covered by glacier ice, to being filled with water. And then
that's what they're doing right now.
Exactly. So
live.
So they're moving
cool.
the water around. And then I think they've got some props over there, because we're also going to go a little bit more in depth and explain how the salmon got there.
Okay.
So using
there's
these,
the salmon.
Exactly. Oh, I think there's a few more.
Yeah, we like more salmon in Alaska. More salmon.
Yeah, exactly. So it's really taking the findings from our research grant and just trying to connect with the community and translate it in a really hands-on and exciting way, so people can, you know, interact with us as much as possible.
Well, sure. That makes the learning and the science real and quite literally in your face, rather than just some boring black and white paper that you have to read about. This is something that people can understand better because it's visual and they're touching and feeling and seeing these changes, right?
Yeah, and get them engaged. And then outreach is a huge component, and working with the younger students, and actually even, I mean, working with the UAF graduate and engineering students it's a huge part of our grant, and we really enjoy it.
Oh, it is wonderfully exciting. And so, Alana, you were telling us that this is built to travel.
Right.
And this is built to do more things than version 1. Where can this type of project go in Alaska? And what can it demonstrate?
I mean, we were hoping to eventually get to villages that were harder to reach, that you couldn't necessarily move a whole fixed instrument to, right? You need something that can pack up, fit in your truck bed. I mean, one of the most attractive parts of this project is that this was going to be something that was used past our graduation point. You know, this is
Okay.
going to be something that lives in the state for years.
Right, right. Well, it looks like you're well on your way with that. So what are, give me another example. What else can this show us? We've talked about the Kenai River watershed. What's the coolest thing that you've played in the sand with? What's your idea?
Well, I definitely enjoy the props, but we also like kind of building up a giant mound, and if you put some water behind it, you can make a little runway, I guess, and
Okay.
you know, demonstrate the effects of the hydrology by just putting up a dam and letting it all pour right down.
Okay.
And so that could, I think you mentioned it earlier, you could even demonstrate the effects of a tsunami
Right.
or
okay.
something along those lines.
So it's not just topography, but it's also hydrology
Yes.
and coastal surge mapping and some of the coastal changes that we're seeing here in Alaska, and seeing what the smaller changes in the sandbox might do to kind of a real effect of a slosh or a push of water up on the coast. Tsunami inundation mapping, or even glacial dam release, as some has been demonstrated before.
Yep.
So wow, that's just an impressive thing. That it seems like the possibilities are nearly endless with this, and probably even more ideas that are popping up in your head too.
Yeah, as we speak.
Very cool. All right. Well, if folks want to get more information about EPSCoR, you guys are online. You're on Facebook, Twitter, and on YouTube. AKEPSCOR, right? EPSCoR, Alaska EPSCoR, that is. And again, you guys are funded by the National Science Foundation,
Yes,
so
we are.
more to come from that, and a longer-term study there. Thank you, ladies, for joining us today. Congratulations on your hard work there. This is really fun. And for now, I'm meteorologist Dave Snyder with this edition of Alaska Weather Facts, and I'm going to go play in the sandbox there. We'll see you next time.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Looking at coastal water forecasts there for the Panhandle out along the coast. Central coast, west-northwest, pretty light at 10 knots, seas under 10 feet. South coast, northeast of 15 with 10-foot seas, or the south coast, northeast 15 with 10-foot seas. And the north coast, east of 15. Lincoln Isle, Glacier Bay, northern inner channels, gale force northerlies at 40 knots, 7-foot seas, small craft advisories for north winds at 25 knots for Stevens Passage, Clarence Strait, north winds 15 knots. And for Thursday, Clarence Strait, southeast winds 25 knots, Stevens Passage north at 20, and small craft advisories for Lincoln Canal, north 25 knots, seas 4 feet. Kind of variable wind pattern at 15 knots for the south coast. Up on the north coast, though, southeast 20 to 25 knots with seas 7 to 8 feet. Cook Inlet, northeast winds 15 to 25 knots tomorrow with 10-foot seas south of the Forelands. North winds 25 knots, Kamishak Bay with 10-foot seas. Northwest at 20 for the Barren Islands, and north winds 15 to 20 knots for the North Gulf Coast with gale force gusts to 40 knots out of the Copper River Delta. Prince William Sound, north winds 20 knots. And the outlook for Thursday, Cook Inlet, northern Cook Inlet, north winds 15 knots. Small craft advisories, southern Cook Inlet and Kamishak Bay for north winds at 25, seas 6 feet. West winds 20 knots for the Barren Islands, and the North Gulf Coast, east or east-southeast winds at about 20 knots. Prince William Sound, northeast at 15. Moving out to Kodiak Island, east side of the island, they're pretty light and variable wind pattern tomorrow with 7-foot seas. Shelikof Strait, light northeast breeze at 15 knots. And Bering Sea side of the Alaska Peninsula, small craft advisories. Southeast winds 25 knots. Bristol Bay, small craft advisories for east winds at 25 knots. And Pacific side of the Alaska Peninsula, winds 20 knots from the south with 8-foot seas. And for the Thursday outlook, winds become westerly there across Kodiak Island, 15 to 20 knots, seas as high as 8 feet. And small craft advisories for the Alaska Peninsula, west-southwest, 25 to 30 knots, strongest on the Bering Sea side of the peninsula there with 11-foot seas, and southwest 15 for Bristol Bay. On Alaska Islands, small craft advisories, south winds 25 knots for the day Wednesday. Unmak Island, west-southwest at 25, and 30-knot winds from the west for Atka, Adak, and Amchitka. And then gale warnings for west winds 35 knots from Kiska to Shemya with 25-foot seas. And then storm warnings in the forecast from Shemya to Kiska on Thursday. West winds 55 knots, seas just under 30 feet, and gales for Amchitka Island, southwest 45 knots, Adak and Atka, gale warning southwest 45 knots. And Unmak Island, minimum gales coming into the area there with winds from the southwest at 35 knots. Small craft advisories around Alaska Island for southwest winds of 30 knots. Southwest coast, southeast 30 to 35 knots. 40 knots southeast winds, St. Lawrence Island. Small craft advisories to St. Matthew Island, south winds at 25 knots. South at 15 for the Perbilofs, and gale warnings for Norton Sound for east winds at 35 knots. Let's see, those winds will come down to 25 knots, so the gales go to brisk wind advisories for Norton Sound, small craft advisories for the southwest coast, south to southwest 25 knots, same thing for St. Matthew Island. Pribilofs, southwest 30 knots, 13-foot seas, much lighter winds for St. Lawrence Island, east at 20. Eastern Beaufort Sea coast, variable winds 5 to 15 knots, central coast east at 15 knots. Brisk wind advisories for the western Arctic coast, especially from Point Lay all the way down to Wales, east winds 30 knots. And the outlook for Thursday, 30-knot winds continue from Wales up and now the entire stretch of the Arctic coast, east winds 30 knots. And from Wales to Cape Thompson, east winds 30 knots. Cape Thompson, Cape Beaufort, northeast 30 knots. For tonight, cold high pressure over interior Alaska centered up over the eastern north slope, so below zero just about everywhere in the state. In interior Alaska there, mainland Alaska, not the panhandle though, but it'll be dry over the southeast coast. Lingering light snow over the eastern Copper River Basin, maybe up to Nabesna and Northway. Otherwise, snow blowing, snow winter storm watches along the west coast, St. Lawrence Island, incoming front, rain for the Pribilofs and along the Aleutians. And for Wednesday, winter storm watches out for the western part of the state, fair and cold over the central and eastern interior. And the next day, warmer temperatures, more moisture, and chance of snow over a widespread area of the state.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.